My fellow Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, this is going to be a lot more than just a match preview. Okay, we're going to talk about some really important things right now. I will give you guys a couple of thoughts ahead of the match in San Mamés tonight. Atleti de Bilbao is a team I have enormous respect for. The entire Basque Country. I just have so much. First of all, it's one of the most beautiful parts of the Iberian Peninsula. Just so much history, so much tradition, and so much pride. These are an incredible people. The Romans conquered all of Europe, but they couldn't get into the Basque Country. These people are tough as nails, but they play with that sort of pride. So I will give you, and that translates into sort of the way they play football. Very proud. It's going to be a very, very tough match. It's amazing. Atleti de Bilbao you can only play in Athletic if you've been born in the Basque Country, and yet despite this limitation, they have not been relegated in 127 years. I mean, that is a hell of an accomplishment and says a lot about these people. I will give you a couple of thoughts in terms of the match, what I expect them, how I expect them, how they typically play, which actually has a lot to do with the weather, believe it or not. We'll talk about that. But I do want to address four really important issues that, all the YouTubers that I follow here in Spain and the press, etc., we do need to talk about this. Number one, Kylian is a wonderful individual player, but why doesn't it contribute to better collective play? And we saw it at PSG, we're seeing it now in Madrid, and this is a very valid discussion that we need to have. Number two, the Jude and Arda discussion. Can these guys play together? Who should be 8? Who should be 10? Can they even play together? Okay, it's another very valid discussion based on what we're seeing. Number three, even if all of our defenders are healthy, which is a utopia that seems completely unattainable, because I can't remember the last time that was the case, even if all of our defenders are healthy, is it enough with what we have? We'll discuss that. And then finally, Chabi. How long will he last? Is this assignment a little bit too big for him? How long will he last? And what I think will happen and should happen. So I'll discuss those four things first, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts on the match in San Mamés tonight. Thanks for joining me. As always, lots to talk about. Let's get started. My fellow Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, just a little housekeeping before we get started. And, I really love going over the comments. I love the comments. I learn a lot, actually, from the things that you guys contribute. But very occasionally you get, sort of silly people saying silly things. And I just want to mention a couple of comments that I saw based on my last video. Somebody came on and sort of said, why are you always glazing Kylian? Why are you, always, he will use the word glaze like 10 times. And look, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Okay. Like you can't watch one of my videos and make a conclusion about what I think. I mean, for those of you that followed my early videos, there were moments I didn't even want Kylian to come. Okay. When Vini was playing really well, I thought it's going to create overlap. It's going to destabilize us. The idea that I have, look, you guys need to understand, I have no skin in the game. I'm not married to any player. I'm not married to any manager. I'm married to the club. And the only thing I want is for Real Madrid to succeed. Okay? So, please don't accuse me of sort of favoring one or the other. I call what I see, and sort of, this is the way I am on the channel and in real life. Those that know me, I call what I see, and I believe very much in truth. And so please don't tell me that I have sort of any alignment to, that's just ridiculous. So anyway, all right. And then there was another comment, somebody came on and said, you don't criticize Chabi enough. Why don't you criticize Chabi? Okay, excuse me. I spent 33 minutes in my last video giving the most detailed critique of our play in every respect, including the substitutions, the timing of the substitutions, and who was substituted. Who do you think I'm criticizing? The Pope? I mean, when I'm criticizing what I see on the pitch, this is by default a criticism of Chabi. Now, if it's not explicit enough for you, I'll say it. Chabi's doing a terrible job. He's doing a terrible job, and he's on a tightrope, and his days are numbered unless things change. So please, you guys, come on. I mean, we should be smarter than all of that. Okay, now before we talk about the match in San Mamés, let's talk about the 4 issues that I mentioned in the intro, because they are, I think, very valid discussions. And again, I invite all of you to tell me what you guys think. I mean, there is a discussion and a point that I think is a fair point to make, and it's that if you think of it, when Kylian was at PSG, even when Messi was there and when Neymar were there, I think you could argue that during those years, Kylian was the best player, and he's the one that stood out. He was the most consistent, and yet PSG suffered in terms of collective play. They couldn't get it over the line in the Champions League, and that was sort of the very, very big frustration for that entire institution that has invested ridiculous amounts of money. But so he was playing brilliantly there, but the collective play suffered and they couldn't win the Champions League. Now he comes here to a team that had won the Champions League sort of, without him a lot. And what we see is something similar. He plays very, very well individually, but the collective play is suffering. Now, I don't want to blame Kylian. Look, it is true that when he came, it destabilized the club in some respect, and the reason that it created a natural disruption in the equilibrium, because there was natural overlap with Vini. Now, when you start, this reminds me a lot of the early 2000s, and I happened to be living in Madrid during those years, and I would go to every single match. This reminds me a lot of when Beckham came and Figo was already here. Yes, they're talented players in their own right, and they are sort of the best in the world in their own right. But once you get overlap and you start to force players to play in positions that are not their natural positions, you tend to have a problem. And I think what we've learned historically in Madrid is that ego plus overlap equals terrible football. And this could have a lot to do with what we're seeing now. So I think, it's hard to criticize Kylian because he's playing very well. I mean, he's playing really well, and you cannot argue that he is not an absolutely exceptional player. I mean, his technical attributes are amazing. But is it possible that his presence alone has created instability? Absolutely. Has it completely changed the dynamic and the equilibrium? Yes. For those of you that followed my videos last season, I kept insisting I like a 4-4-2, and once Kylian comes, all of a sudden Ancelotti was forced to play a 4-4-3, and that made us hollow, and we played terrible football because it made us hollow. Okay, we were playing a formation that wasn't the best formation. Our midfield was very weak, and all of this because we had to fit Kylian in, and we had to kind of make the pieces work because Kylian came, and you have to play him because he's Kylian. So there is some truth to it and some validity to the argument. And, of course, I don't want to blame Kylian. I mean, he's playing so well. He's our best player right now. I mean, he's the most consistent player we have. But, I mean, is there an argument to be made? There probably is. And this is a discussion. I don't have the answer. I don't think anyone does. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section. But is it a fair observation to make? Absolutely. Is it possibly a fair critique to make? Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the other big issue that kind of everyone is all over, right? Jude, Arda, the compatibility. This is not dissimilar, okay? These are two players that can both play both positions, okay? Arda can play the number 8 or the number 10. Jude can play the number 8 or the number 10. They have slightly different characteristics, but I know that if given continuity, because another part of the problem is the lack of continuity, because each of these players can play each position, but if you're constantly swapping them around, how are you gonna sort of create natural play? Like, if Arda's playing in a double pivot for 3 matches, and then all of a sudden he plays the number 10 for 2 matches, and then all of a sudden you put him on the right the next match, how can you expect to get the best out of this player? And same with Jude, right? What, you stick him on the left one day, you put him in a double pivot one day, another match you make him number 10. And so I think, I don't believe when people say that these two guys can't play together. I don't believe that. Okay, they're both extremely intelligent, extremely technically gifted. You're not going to convince me that they can't. But what I think needs to happen is that they need to have a role on a continuous, regular basis. So my personal opinion is that Arda is a better 10, okay? And my personal opinion is that Jude might fit better in an 8. And I say that because Jude is a more physical player. First of all, Jude, he's much more energetic in the press, especially when you watch the matches live. This guy runs his ass off. He runs more than him and Fede. They are the sort of, they're the players that just run their asses off every match. But I think that if you allow Jude to sort of play an 8 position regularly, he will grow into that because he's an amazing player. And if you let Arda play the 10 position, but you do it regularly, you allow him to develop, and then the two will gel. I'm sure that they can. What is destroying our play is this constant switching. You're constantly asking the players to do different things, and I just don't think that leads to consistent play. So I think that's part of the problem. And if my opinion, I would play Arda as a 10 constantly, and I would play Jude as an 8 constantly. That's my opinion, but I'd love to hear yours. Okay, the third discussion that we were going to have was the defensive line. Okay, I mean, this is kind of a nightmare. By the way, Mendy's injured again, which should not surprise anyone because I think at this point he's moved all of his personal belongings into a hospital. Mendy has been injured for 3 years. I don't know how. He plays one game and he's injured for 6 months. It's just been happening over and over. I don't know exactly why. He's a great defender that has helped us win unbelievable things, and I respect him. But he's just is a very unlucky dude because he's just constantly injured. But let's look at the ages. Okay, let's look at our defensive line. Alaba is 33. Carvajal is 33. Rudiger is 32. Mendy is 30. And like I say, although he spends most of his time in the hospital, but he's 30. Militao is 27. Trent is 27. You don't get that impression because he's got that kind of baby face and he just arrived. But Trent is 27, okay? He's no spring chicken. Fran is 26. Now, Asencio is 22. Carreras is 22. And Huijsen is 20. Now, when you look at that, how can you not come to the conclusion that we are in desperate need of more defenders? I think we need at least 2 more. Look, we're short. First of all, the injuries that are recurring in the defensive line are insane. I can't put my finger on what the hell is going on there. But if you just look at we're one defender short just mathematically. And then if you look at the age of our defenders, we're way short. We're way short. We need to, I don't think we'll do anything in the winter market because Real Madrid doesn't like doing things in the winter market. But do we in summer, do we need to go shopping? Hell yes. Hell yes. I think our defensive line is a massive, massive problem. And, Rudiger is wonderful now, and he can still sort of sprint and all that, but he is 32. Militao is extraordinary what he's done post-injuries, but he's 27. In a couple of years, you need to start thinking about this. Carvajal is 33, and I think he's so valuable in the dressing room. I love having him around because he's the only one of the players in the squad that has the Real Madrid character, like the Sergio Ramos and the Kroos and Cristiano and, just the winners, right? The people that just have that winning DNA. So Carvajal is incredibly valuable, but he's 33. So and Alaba, forget it. Between injuries and age, you just cannot count on him. Look, we need to reinforce the defensive line in summer. I think there's going to be a massive shopping spree. There better be. Okay, and then the fourth issue that I wanted to discuss before the San Mamés match was the issue of Chabi. Because apparently I'm too soft on Chabi. So I literally I'm so detailed in my critique of our play, and somehow I'm not criticizing Chabi. Who the hell do you think I'm criticizing? I mean, it's ridiculous. Okay, Chabi is doing a really terrible job, and I think that it's possible that the players are not responding to him, and it could be a combination of maybe he's a little bit too green. Maybe he doesn't, command the authority that some other managers do. I mean, I think a guy like Klopp or Ancelotti or Zidane, they kind of command more. Xabi Alonso was a great player, but I just don't. Because he's only been managing, for a few years, he's a very young manager. I just don't think he commands the kind of respect that other managers command. That could be one of the issues, and then the other issues could be tactical. I think he's changing tactics way too often. The players started with a certain idea, and I did videos of what I thought Chabi was about, and it looked like that for the first few matches. But now it's kind of falling apart, and it looks like we're just putting Band-Aids everywhere. Like, we're just like trying different stuff just because we're playing like crap. So it could be confusing messaging. It could be the lack of sort of presence. It could be a number of things. But Chabi is on a tightrope right now. Okay. Now, what do I think should happen? Well, I think he should be given a chance to turn things around, and if he doesn't, he has to go. Now, Real Madrid, knowing kind of what I know about the club just historically, they don't want to let him go. I know that they want to give him a shot at least till the end of the season. But I also know that the level of impatience in this club is absolutely unique and unlike anything in the world. And just listen to this. A week ago, we were first in La Liga and 8th in the Champions League. Barça was second in La Liga and 18th in the Champions League. And who's the club in crisis? We are? Okay, this is the type of pressure that surrounds this club, which is unlike any other club in the world. And the only reason we're all freaking out is because this is Real Madrid. In any other club, you would just kind of hope for the best and, let's hope he can fix it. But in Real Madrid, we have very itchy feet. And we don't take bad play very well. We don't tolerate draws or losses. So that everything is magnified at this club. So I know that if we see 2 or 3 more poor matches, the club will let him go. I know they don't want to. They don't want to. I know that they want to keep him till the end of the year, out of respect. But if we play another 2 or 3 bad matches, I can tell you that the pressure from Madridismo is too much, and they will have to do something. So that's kind of what I think what's going to happen with Chabi. But please don't tell me I don't criticize him. That's insane. Okay, let's talk about the match in San Mamés tonight. This is it's always a tough place to play. By the way, it's beautiful. You guys, if you haven't been to the Basque Country, you really need to go. It's just spectacular. That cartoon Asterix and Obelix was sort of based on the Romans trying to get into that area and having to fight with the locals. It's a beautiful place. They play with an enormous amount of pride. These are very proud people, and their style of play reflects it. They always play with a huge amount of intensity. I'll tell you why this is going to be a tricky match. Because the way that Athletic plays is exactly what we don't want to see. Okay, they play, typically they like to play the counter, okay? They like to play the counter, and they love aerial balls. Now, what are the 2 things that we're horrible at? Playing in possession and trying to get through a defensive block, and number 2, defending aerial balls. So the way that the match sets up tonight is exactly what we don't like, okay? This is a team that is very happy to give you the ball, and you can, pass the ball horizontally all day long. But when they steal the ball, they're very dangerous. Okay, they love to play to the wings, and they love to put the balls in the air. And how many headers does Athletic score over the decades? They love that type of very aggressive play. And it's interesting because if you think about it, there's a reason for why they play this way, and it's something that I think applies to English football as well. And English football today is very, very technical. It's become very technical. The players are very, very good on the ball, but that wasn't always the case. And sort of English football historically was always sort of kick and run. It was always kind of, the ball was in the air a lot, and it would go to the wing, and you would cross the ball, and it was always like that. And the reason that you play kick and run football, or you play sort of wing cross football, and the ball spends a lot of time in the air, is because of the weather. So if you play this sport as a kid, let's say you're growing up in the Basque Country, or you're growing up in the UK, and you go out and play with your friends, it's been raining, okay, all the time. So the grass is muddy, it's clumpy. You also have a different kind of grass. So it's very hard to dribble. Short passing and accurate passing is very difficult because the grass is lumpy. So you are naturally incentivized to put the ball in the air. You want to get the ball to another player, you're probably going to want to lift it because just the grass is so bumpy. And so the type of grass that you have in the weather actually influences the way that people play. And like I say, in the UK, that's completely changed now, and the players are very technical, but that wasn't always the case. And the reason that Athletic de Bilbao does love to play the sort of long balls to the wing and crosses into the box is because it rains a ton in the Basque Country. Okay, like if you go there, it's all green. I mean, you think you're in Ireland or something. I mean, it's cold. It rains, sideways sometimes. I mean, it's windy and cold. So the type of grass is conducive to this sort of play. So this is how they play. Now in Spain, for example, it's dry, it's sunny, you have a different kind of grass. So in Spain, it's very conducive to sort of tiki-taka, right? Very accurate passing, dribbling. Why? Because it's not pissing rain, it's not muddy, the grass is perfect. It's like a fairway in golf, like the grass is perfect. So of course it's conducive to highly technical football. That is not the case in the Basque Country. They go out and play and, it's raining and it's muddy. And so they tend to play that kind of direct football. But like I say, it plays exactly into our weaknesses. They're going to give us the ball, and when we're in possession and we move our lines up, we have no idea what to do. We can't break through a solid defensive block, no matter who it is. And then they're going to counter very quickly, and and our defensive transition is kind of slow. And they're going to put balls in the air, and we are awful at defending aerial balls. So I think this is going to be a super difficult match. I hope I'm wrong, but it's not going to be easy. Okay, in terms of lineup, with Chabi, it's kind of a pointless exercise because he loves to surprise us. He rotates, I used to think it was really clever. Now I just think it's very confusing. So look, Courtois, I expect to play. I think Carreras will play on the left. He got rest, the other day. I think Huijsen will probably come back. I think Mili will probably play. I think he might rest Rudiger. I think he might rest Rudiger. I think Trent will play on the right because you have to give him a little bit of continuity, and he's starting to kind of connect. Now, I could be wrong because Chabi is extremely unpredictable, but that's what I think. Now, I think in the middle of what you would normally expect in the midfield. And I think this will be a 4-4-2 again, I think, because this is a very tough match. You need a lot of, you need muscle in the middle of the pitch. I think you'll have Tchouaméni, or he might want to give Tchouaméni rest, but he's been so vital. The normal thing you would expect is Tchouaméni, Fede, Arda, Jude, okay? But maybe he wants to give Tchouaméni some rest, and maybe you see Camavinga, I don't know. This would be what you would normally expect, and then Vini and Kylian up front. But of course, he could surprise us because he loves to do that. So look, I think this is going to be a very difficult match. It's a very important match, not just in terms of points, but in terms of the destiny of Chabi at this club. And these players need to really kick into gear, or there will be changes. I just don't think that Real Madrid has the stomach for much more of this. So this is a very important match in every respect, not just the points, but for all the reasons I mentioned, I think it's going to be an extremely difficult match. Okay, those are my thoughts. Let me know what, tell me what you think in the comment section, which I really enjoy reading. But thanks for joining me as always. I love you guys. And as always and forever, a la Madrid.